can move on from East London to North London, Pete. Of course, we're going to talk about the busiest club in the transfer window, Tottenham Hotspur. Are there any further signings Tottenham fans can expect to see for the end of the window?
Well, yeah, obviously we've talked about him earlier in the show. Antonio Nusa is probably the one that they are really trying to get over the line. And now if Newcastle have joined the race from, they'll be desperate to get this deal done as soon as possible. From Club Bruges, again, young player. Tottenham have a similar profile to what Newcastle do. They like to sign players under the age of 24 who they can develop and improve as well. And I think it's a real exciting prospect now for any potential signing to be joining this Spurs team. The way they play under Postecoglou, that's got to be a big plus factor for Tottenham now in the recruitment process, that they can look to encourage them to move because of the attacking style of football that they play now under Postecoglou as well. In an ideal scenario, Spurs would like to bring in another midfielder, but I think the targets that they've probably got are probably out of reach for this transfer window. Conor Gallagher was the name that Tottenham were looking at, but I don't see Chelsea selling him to Tottenham, especially at this juncture of the season. He's been a key player from Richie Pochettino, and as we mentioned last week, Tottenham and Chelsea don't do business normally, so I don't think there'll be any will from Chelsea to give one of their players to Tottenham in this window. They had a bit of an interest in Calvin Phillips as well, but obviously West Ham have won the race for his signature, so I think for Spurs right now, it'll be about getting those players back from the AFCON as well as soon as possible to help that midfield. And James Maddison will also be making a return from injury soon enough. So yeah, all positive from Tottenham. They've been the ones that have really kept this transfer window alive with their dealing so far with Dragosun and Timo Werner, who are two good additions to the side. So between now and then, it's probably exits at Tottenham rather than incomings, apart from Nusa, if they can get that deal done.
And Paul, I know we mentioned Kudus coming back to West Ham and feeling like a new signing. How much is James Maddison going to impact the Spurs team going into the second half of the season? Because, I mean, Spurs fans are absolutely elated to see him really soon.
Yeah, I mean, you look at what he did at the start of the season. Those 10 games at the start of the season, he was key to everything. He was pivotal. He was excellent. The way that Spurs played, the way that he played in that number 10 role. He was the signing of the summer, arguably. Him and Szoboszlai, I think, were probably the signings of the summer. But to have him missing for such a long time, it's given Ange an opportunity to look at playing without him, obviously, using other players in different positions. But to have him come back in, yeah, it will feel like a new signing for him because he's that good and he has that much of an impact.
Pete, you mentioned there that Tottenham are looking at midfielders. Are there any names potentially on that list that we can talk about before the window shuts they're eyeing up to sign?
Yeah, obviously Conor Gallagher was probably the number one on that list, but I don't see that deal happening. Ederson at Atalanta was another name that they've looked at as well, but again, probably too expensive for this January transfer window. And Calvin Phillips was somebody who was mentioned as a potential, but they've missed out on that deal as well. So I think Tottenham, they're going to have to be content with what they've done so far. And if they can get Nusa in as well, I think that's a good January transfer window for them. If they can get 3 players in and maybe offload some players that aren't in the plans of Ange Postecoglou, which they have offloaded a number of players to save on the wage bill, the likes of Hugo Lloris and Eric Dyer and others have left, and that does balance the books a bit as well for Tottenham to allow them to make further signings as well. So yeah, I think it's been a successful window so far for Tottenham, and I think obviously the latest rumour going around is that they've rejected a bid for Emerson Royal from Al Nassr, which was an interesting one. I think probably if you went back a year ago, I think Spurs would have bitten their hand off to sell Emerson Royal, but it seems like he has become a key man in the Postecoglou side. Remember, he filled in at centre-back when they had all those injuries to Romero and Mickey van de Ven as well. So I don't think Spurs would probably be willing to let Emerson Royal go at this stage of the season as well. But I think for Spurs, everything's looking rosy. Top 4 push is on. So yeah, they've had a good transfer window, and I think all focus will now be on the games.
And Pete, just to wrap up for Spurs fans that might be wondering, where are they at with FFP, considering how busy they've been? Are they close to the line? Of course, last week, if you have missed it, please go and listen back when the news broke, of course, that Nottingham Forest and Everton have broken some rules. Where does Spurs stand on that front?
Yeah, I'm sure, obviously, they're probably on the fringes. I heard somebody told me last week that between 8 and 10 teams are right on the fringes of FFP in the Premier League. So that's almost half the league. And that tells its own story. I think a lot of clubs are overspending from what they earn right now as well. So there could be more than just Everton and Forest that find themselves in trouble with these regulations as well. But Spurs obviously, got to remember, got a lot of money from Harry Kane's sale last summer to Bayern Munich, so that obviously went a long way to the signings that Spurs have made, and they've got a shrewd businessman in Daniel Levy. I think that I don't think they'll find themselves running into too much trouble as well. They won't spend more than what they earn as well. So I think Spurs are in a good place. All things are positive there right now, and they've really stepped up this season when a lot of people expected them to struggle under a new manager and without Harry Kane, but they've probably surpassed expectations, I think. And I think getting in the top four and a potential trophy of the FA Cup would be a massive success for Tottenham this season.
It's a big call. Paul, can you see it happening potentially?
What, the FA Cup?
Yeah, the FA Cup.
You can dream from a Spurs point of view. I mean, they went through against Burnley in the last round. It's like I say, it's been a long time. You don't want to tempt fate. I mean, a dinosaur like me was one of the last ones to get his hands on a trophy for Tottenham, and it'd just be nice to end the ongoing jokes. I mean, nobody deserves a trophy. But after, the time in recent history, you look at what Daniel's done at the club, Daniel Levy's done. The big cry was, we need a trophy, we want a trophy. You got to give him credit. He went and got 2 win-now managers. He went and got Jose Mourinho and Antonio Conte, 2 proven winners who couldn't get that team over the line. And then he's listened to the fans again and gone, look, we're fed up of watching this football. We don't want to watch this football. We want trophies, but we want to enjoy watching football again. They've now got the potential of both, because the football is a great watch. And Andrews, he was quite clever with what he spoke about at the beginning of the season. He said, I don't want to come here. I'm not a quick fix. I'm not looking to win a trophy and that's it, job done. He wants to build a team that's capable of competing for trophies regularly, which, I mean, the early signs are very good for that. Would I take an FA Cup trophy this year? Absolutely, I would, yeah.
Well, only time will tell. So
You've just watched a segment from Football Insider's brand new podcast, The Inside Track, with me, Lewis Pearce, alongside the guests on the show. Thanks very much for tuning in. Please do give the video a like, comment your thoughts on the topic, and feel free to share on your social media pages. If you want to listen to the full podcast episode, click the link in the description below. Keep your eyes peeled for plenty more content and exclusives here on The Inside Track.